Okay, I just started a cloud recording. Let me start my backup recording. I guess so. This is welcome. Thank you so much for joining, both those of you who are here in real time and those who may be joining by recorded video. For this first online session and probably our Friday's virtual class session, let me give a kind of longer explanation of my setup so that people have some sense of what I'm able to see, what I'm not able to see, what you can watch out for me doing for what I'm actually looking at. So for this virtual or online orientation session and soon after virtual class session, I have a two-screen setup. So everyone should be seeing my shared screen here. And actually, Zoom has made some improvements, so I can actually see what I'm sharing here. I have a kind of an odd Zoom settings that basically shares all my Zoom windows. That's not a default Zoom setting. So I have this main screen that's physically located here that you are seeing shared. And so basically, if I'm looking at, so this is the left corner, right bottom corner, left bottom corner of the screen. So if my eyes are somewhere in that area, then I'm looking at something on the shared screen. And I have a two screen setup to help me manage this session. The second screen is over here physically. So I have a few people who are here in real time, and I do want to kind of make sure, want to make sure that I'm responsive to any questions you have, any reactions people who are here in real time might have. So for that purpose, you will see me glance every now and then over here. That's when I'm looking at people who are here in real time. Not literally, unless your video happens to be on. No pressure, you don't have to turn your video on. But just to watch for reactions and mainly to look at the chat window where I imagine some people might have put something in. So now the nature of a video conference is that there's a degree of unnaturalness there. So when it looks, so I've trained myself. I can make it look like I'm making eye contact, and when it looks like I'm making eye contact, it's actually I'm not looking at anybody in particular. I'm looking at this camera hole that I've trained myself to look at, so when I want to make it look like I'm making an eye contact, I'll look at the camera hole so that it looks like I'm looking at you, but I'm not. It's just the way the video thing works. Now, there are some new things that I want to try this semester. That's one of the reasons I do this orientation session fresh every semester. I noticed this AI companion thing that started popping up on Zoom. And I think I've already started it. And let me just to make sure the settings are correct. I was looking at this earlier, and I've already set it to a different setting. But so who can ask questions about this meeting's transcript? And I do want to make sure that everyone can, because I don't have any reason to restrict it. So I guess all participants can invite this. And meeting summary. So I can certainly. Select this. I think unless Zoom has your email address somehow, you probably still won't get it. But hey, and I don't exactly know what AI companion lets you do. I think I've tried. What's my name mentioned? And I'm pretty sure I haven't said Andrew yet, so it'll say my name wasn't mentioned yet. These new features, my main worry is sometimes they're multiple times. What? Oh, that's yeah, but I didn't say my name. I don't know. Sometimes there's a cost to complexity. So I'm a little bit wary of that, but for the time being, I'm just turning on all the access because if some and do let me know if you find it useful. Then I'll make sure that it's turned on. And if no one tells me it's useful, at some point I might just forget to pay attention to the AI companion feature. So I think I've said enough about my setup, and people who joined on time, I gave you opportunity to introduce yourself, whether you took advantage of that opportunity or not. Let me put what I'm gonna be calling my usual welcome message into the chat, and I'll type that. So right now, don't send anything to me in chat. I'm gonna drag my chat window to the shared screen, and let me put in what's going to become my usual welcome message. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining in this online orientation session. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or put your question into the chat window. And this is almost the script I have now, and every word here is meaningful. So you can, the people who are here in real time, you can certainly unmute yourself and ask. The one thing that you should be aware is that, I'm recording, both backup recording. Oh, I didn't explain what this is backup of. It's backup of my face. It's also backup of audio. It records a slightly higher quality audio than what the cloud recording will be. This is useful for when I edit this video down for a YouTube version. So let me actually hide this backup thing away. And so feel free to unmute yourself and ask whenever you have a question. Maybe I said something that doesn't make sense and it looks like I'm gonna move on, and you want to make sure you get my attention. Unmute yourself and ask, please. Now, I found that very few people actually do that. So you are going to see me basically talk nonstop, and that's because, so one of the things that they actually teach us so I've been GSI at Berkeley since 2006, and one of the first things that they teach you when they are teaching you how to teach is how to use silence in a way to kind of encourage participation and whatnot. And hopefully, in the in-person lab, you will see me that I know how to do that. I know how to just shut up, not say anything until someone, ideally a student, feels uncomfortable enough and says something. Now that method of teaching, it's never really worked well in this online setting. I have tried it once and it went horribly ineffectively, so I didn't try it again. And I think there's something about psychology. It's different when you are there all in person, then with the silence feels awkward, and it's a matter of who can outlast the awkwardness. But in this online setting, some of you may even be multitasking, and I don't think you're gonna feel all that awkward about silence, so you won't feel pressure to speak. So I've seen that not work. So that this session is not bunch of just long silences. What I've instead decided to go with is a convention that's more common in the broadcasting world. So that like radio stations get fined if they have dead air. So I'm gonna go with the convention and just minimize dead air. And the effect of that is that you will basically hear me speak nonstop. And I just want to make sure that people who are here in real time and people who may be joining in real time in the future, that you don't mistake that non-stop speaking as a disinvitation to questions. So I just understand that I'm gonna be speaking non-stop without any long breaks. If you have questions, just unmute yourself and ask. Don't worry about interrupting, because I'm frankly not giving you any choice. And if you feel like if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then that's fine. You can put it into the chat window. Now, anything that you put into chat to everyone will also get recorded. If you want to send a question in a way that won't be recorded, you can click on who the message goes to, and don't do it right now because it'll get captured in recording here. But if you select my name and send it to me as a private message, then after I drag this chat window to my second screen, I'll still be able to monitor there and it won't be captured in recording. So let me drag it, and I won't drag it back to the shared screen for the remainder of this session. So yeah, that's the welcome message and people who are joining here. And really, one of the main reasons to join in real time is to be able to, influence the flow of this meeting. Otherwise, if you're just listening, the recording is as good as being here in real time, maybe even better, because you can play at double the speed, you can skip around, you can't skip around when you're here in real time. But so I do extend that invitation, even if I forget to say it again in future sessions, just to know that you have standing invitation to ask questions and, influence the flow of this meeting. If you don't want to do that, that's also fine. I do appreciate you being here. So let me get started out with the kind of the main agenda of this session. So for each one of these online sessions, you will see me post a message that basically looks like this. And really, one of the reasons it's an organizational reason. It kind of makes sure I don't miss something that's important. So introduction, saying hi. Hi, my name is Andrew Park. I'm your instructor for Physics 4A. I will do a longer intro. Sorry, I heard a noise. I'll do a longer intro in the later as I'm doing course demo. There are things that I can do that will be a longer version of my intro, and I'll be able to do two things. Sorry. I'm in my office, which is attached to the classroom. If I look distracted, it's because I heard the door sound. I can't quite tell if that's the external door, or if someone opened the classroom door. So I said my name. A few beginning of semester notes, and this goes to making sure the lines of communication is open. Let me just go through this quickly. That was in the very first announcement of the semester that I posted sometime last week, and really what I want to make sure is, please make sure you are reachable by email. If we are using Peralta email as your main email, great. Please check it at least once daily. If not, if you have another main email that you check once daily, then please make sure that you forward your Peralta email so that, again, you are reachable by email. Especially these first couple weeks, sometimes I see people, not doing anything in the class, they miss the lab session, then I have to reach out to you somehow. And at some point I'll start calling people, but that takes a lot of time. I have to be in office to use the office phone. I would much prefer that I can reach you by email, because that's my first backup method to reach you out with. And I say it's a backup method because the main way you will hear from me and main way I'd like to maintain communication with you is through Canvas. It's just organizationally tidier, because email is for things other than just the class too, and sometimes things get buried. I want to make sure that all the course related communication is organized within Canvas. Now, as I'm doing that, there are certain notification settings that you have to make sure that are enabled so that you receive these communications as intended. I'm highlighting this here, and so you can set this in the notification setting. You can use the link here. You can also reach the notification setting through the link here. Others fine. You don't have to come to this announcement to do that. So the three settings that I strongly recommend that you set as notify immediately, and I get that you may be taking online classes in multiple institutions, and sometimes all these different notifications, they get overwhelming, but these three are used regularly in this class, and not having this enabled in some way will kind of make sure that you are missing some important announcement and information. So one of them, and you can also set this on a per course setting. So you can go to like this. Wait, that's fall. Where's my spring? Yeah. So you can go to this course specific setting and set it there. For me, that's too much complication. I'm just gonna have account wide settings, and you can see in my own settings, most of them are notify immediately, and that's mainly because some of this stuff that almost never happens. Like even if it's set as notify immediately, I never get bothered by that because it never happens, so I never get any notification, so it's fine. Set as notify immediately. Some things, when it's gotten too frequent and gotten annoying, then I've turned it down. Like all submissions used to be notified immediately. Then I realized I'm gonna get every single submissions notified, and I don't really want that. Especially when you're turning things on time early, then it's fine. I'll look at all those after the deadline, and I don't need to be notified as you are submitting it. So I turned it down to daily summary, but any late submissions, it's still notified immediately so that I can kind of keep track of who's catching up. So 3 settings that I recommend that you set as notify immediately are these. Announcement. So the announcement for this session, the welcome to week 1 announcement, if you didn't set it as notify immediately, you probably either will never get it, or you might be getting it later tonight as a daily summary. And I try not to announce anything that requires 24-hour response on your part. So, I try to avoid doing this. So it won't hopefully result in any big big downsides. But daily summary means announcements are potentially delayed by up to 24 hours, and why introduce that delay if you don't have to. So announcement. And so if I need to reach out to you individually, you're going to see me reach out via Canvas message, Canvas conversations. So for that to work like email, you need to turn on conversation message, new inbox messages, notification. So set that as notify immediately. And that way, I will use the Canvas message so that the course-related communications are organized together, but I do still kind of want you to receive it like email. So please set that second thing as notify immediately. And the third thing, it took me like a semester to figure out that some people don't have this set, and it results in you missing out on important notifications. It's a submission comment. And I think with some changes I made to the course for the last couple semesters, there won't be as many of these, but there are still some important course communications that happen as assignment submission comment. And unless you have notification turned on here, you will basically never receive those comments. And if it's if I'm asking you to do something different in your lab report, you will never get it and continue to get points docked as you never got the feedback that you need to do something differently. So this is the third thing that I ask you to set as notify immediately. And I didn't mention it in this message here, but one more thing that I would like to ask you to set at some level of notification is the discussions. Under new topic, I'm asking you to set it as, if not notify immediately, at least some level of daily summary. It's really for 2 reasons. So after the first week, you are not going to get separate announcements about virtual class session recording becoming available. I'm just going to post it in discussions and assume that anyone who's interested, through having enabled this, you will get notifications of the recording being available. So if you don't enable this, then you won't get notifications of when the recording becomes available. That's one. 2, the discussions in this class, it's been set up so that everyone can post. I wanted everyone to be able to reach out to your classmates through online means. Half of this class is 100% online. So and that only really works if most critical number of people have turned the discussion notification on. I do understand with the replies and whatnot, sometimes these get super annoying. So if you want to turn this down, fine, do that. Doesn't affect my class. But new topic, I'm asking you to turn it on if possible at all. And my default recommendation for all this is turn everything as notify immediately, and just turn down the things that bother you. So that's the lines of communication. Please make sure you have correct notifications set up so that so that the messages through Canvas are reaching you the way they are meant to. And I with this class I do lean rather heavily on the fact that we have in-person lab, once a week. That at least is a way to kind of keep track of who's still participating in class. If you miss 2 labs in a row, you will definitely hear from me. Basically asking you, are you staying in the class? And but the majority of this class is still online, so I do want to make sure that people are reachable through online means. I think that was my first agenda item. And for people who've joined after the whole intro thing, I want to make sure that. So I guess I'll put it in the chat. So I'm gonna copy and paste this, which people who joined after the message was posted won't have seen. And as a reminder, I am minimizing dead air. So if you have questions, please unmute yourself and ask, or put your question into the chat window. I see a question relating to grading. I will be addressing that as part of the course demo and some of the pages in the first couple modules. The question was, will we take exams and quizzes in person or online? We don't. This class doesn't have any traditional exams or quizzes. I think I can point to this portion of the syllabus for now, and I will have an extended kind of answer as part of the course demo. So, portion of the syllabus that I'm pointing to is the grading standards portion of the syllabus. So these are the actual grading standards for the class. There are no weights of points because those frankly are not effective. So someone who's getting an A in this class, you are able to demonstrate that you are working toward the mastery of all problem solving techniques necessary to answer most of the homework questions correctly. So you might be wondering, how will I know? And I think in the syllabus we have this. You will. This class uses a version of ungrading, version of contract grading, and really, I want you to know what grade you are getting, and I want that grade that we are arriving at to be sort of a consensus grade, as in you earned that grade, and I am reasonably sure that you did earn that grade. And the mechanism through which this will happen in a fairest, most effective way possible is what's called a required one-on-one meeting. A description of that is in the first couple introductory modules. So I will do that more extended answer as part of the course demo. So a couple quick agenda items. Reminder of Thursday's in-person lab session. Please make sure you are in attendance. If you're not going to be in attendance, make sure that I know why you won't be. Everyone who's not there will get a message from me basically asking, are you planning on staying in class again? Because I'm required to drop students who are not present. And also, I have some people on the wait list, and the attendance in the first 2 days basically what I'm using to gauge if we have enough room to accept everyone on the wait list who are in attendance. So so make sure that you are in attendance at the Thursday's last session. We are at 860 Atlantic Avenue. That is our actual street address. We are not on the main campus. We are a couple blocks away from the main campus, so make sure you are coming to the right address for the in-person lab session. Now, I forgot to ask people here. So the virtual class session and office hours schedule. And in the past semesters, I used to wait until like week 2 to set these times, and ultimately, I think I didn't want to. I wanted to have some times available in the first 2 weeks. And actually, I am holding my office hour today at 5:30 p.m. If anyone's here in person or request online thing, so what I've changed is in the syllabus you will see some times set up already. So the virtual class session, I plan to hold it on Fridays at 11 a.m. And the in-person office hours, I'll be here Mondays evening, 6 to 8 p.m. And basically 30 minutes before the class session, Tuesday through Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday, my other class doesn't actually start for another 3 weeks, but I'll be here for office hour anyway. And for the 30 minutes before your class, I'll be here for office hour. So those times are already scheduled. But I do want to get your feedback. So what I would ask you to do is please complete this survey that I'll be publishing momentarily. I think I did update everything. I'll just double check. So let me publish this survey, and I'll preview to make sure I update it to this semester's info, that the virtual class session and the in-person office hours. Yeah. So do please let me know of how these times work, and I'll collect responses until Friday, and if there's any adjustment necessary, I'll try to make adjustments. Now, if you are wondering where can you access this survey, right now there's one place where you can access it, and it's the one place where I don't want you to use, so so you can't really access it unless you know that exact one place where the link will be. The quiz sidebar has been disabled, so there won't be anything in the sidebar where you can use to access it. My main recommendation for accessing the course material is through the modules view. And that particular survey is not in modules, so you won't see any link here. So I will put a link to the survey when I post the recording for this orientation session. So you can access it that way. Maybe as I'm doing the course demo, I'll also point out where the link to the survey is, but I want to be clear, no mixed messages. I don't want you to use it, or I rather the particular interface where that link appears, I want you to simply ignore it. So so I published the survey. Sorry, I keep forgetting to do this. I gotta write a post-it reminder to myself and put it on the screen. So that I think this I really need to do it before I start the recording. So okay, we have about 30 minutes or so. Let me. Oh, I see the second question. Teacher, are we going to have virtual meetings separate from the labs? I feel like that question has been addressed. We have virtual class sessions, but that's my office hour. So if you are wondering, do you have to be there? No, it's my office hour. You are encouraged, but you are not required to attend. If you are wondering if there are any other required meetings other than the lab meetings, no other required meetings other than there's what I'm calling required one-on-one meeting, but those are individually scheduled. So it's not like it's a meeting you can miss. So okay. Okay, so let me use the remainder of the 30 minutes or so in this online orientation session, demonstrating the course setup. I get these questions from time to time, and people think certain items have been locked, and I want to demonstrate that they're not locked. And this portion of the video, it's more useful to me as a kind of thing I can send to people when people have questions about operation of the online component of this class. And the sidebar has been kept very clean. There's no clutter of the quizzes, assignments, none of that. Anything that you need, you can, it's basically syllabus, announcement, modules, possibly discussions. These two, I guess, if you want to use it, you can. The rest of it, you don't need it, so I disabled it. And in fact, there's one item that I wish I could disable it, but I can't. And that's why you will see it on the right side of the screen as you, access the course site through a web browser. It's this to-do bar. And the main thing I would tell you is it's best ignored. There are certain items in the to-do bar that you can use. The announcements. They are great for keeping track of any announcements that you might have missed that doesn't show up as part of this widget. This widget shows only the most recent announcement. So looking at this, you might not realize you have this announcement here. So if you are keeping track of announcements, great, no issues. But it's the rest of the to-do bar that it gives you an impression that you can do something that you can't. Like this graded discussion. So you might think, oh, this is something for me to do. Let me go participate in this discussion, introduce myself. Nope, you have to clear module requirement. And and people look at this, maybe a few minutes before midnight deadline and think, oh, I locked it somehow. So you write me a message saying, Professor, can you please unlock this for me? Because you read this sentence and you mistakenly think it needs to be unlocked by me. And what I would say is that this message, it's missing an agent. It hasn't been unlocked yet. That is correct. It hasn't been unlocked yet by you. There are actions that you need to take in order to unlock this item. And it's, if you read the rest of the screen, you can see what it is that you need to do to unlock it. You need to go through this in order to do that. But sometimes people don't read it and send me a message. Then I will tell you, I'll point you to this video saying there's nothing for me to do, that you have to do something to unlock it. And really, and I do mean this genuinely. I actually can't unlock this. I can't waive the module requirements for individual students. The only way I can bypass the module requirements is basically to disable it for entire class, and I won't do it. The module requirements, they are really used for one specific reason. It's there to make sure that you look at all the course resources, course materials in order if possible, and at a minimum to make sure that you are aware of the course resources. That's really, I don't think I'm the only instructor who hates this to-do bar. I've heard from a lot of other online instructors at the online teaching conference that happens in SoCal every summer, that other people hate it too, because the way most students use this is to basically bypass all the course organization, to just skip to the assignment because you feel like that's everything you need to do. Okay. And I set up the module requirements so that you can't do it that way. And even the things that are not part of the module requirement, like this class pre-survey, I don't know. I feel mixed. I have a mixed feelings about people doing this early. So I've locked it until the start of the lab session on Thursday. So this to-do bar, my recommendation to you is ignore it. Frankly, because I actually don't think about this to-do bar at all. Because let me leave a student view. The to-do bar that I see as an instructor is very different from what you see as a student. I see the items for me to do. So all the items you see on your to-do bar, it's I never really think about it. Why nothing in the to-do bar is nothing that I designed to appear there, because I never see it in my instructor role. So even though here you can click on the link and fill out the survey, I'm saying ignore the whole thing. I'll make the link available to you in an announcement post that's informing you of the recording availability. So don't use the to-do bar. So the way you should access this class is, after you land on this front page, read through this beautiful front page material. Welcome to Physics 4A, this hybrid class, and you can access everything here. Please click on Start Here button below to get started. So click on Start Here button. Now this works for the first time you are here, and then you probably don't want to keep doing this. This is a static link, and it'll always come to this page. And you can click on, now that semester has started, you can click on Next and go to the next module item and work through each module, one item at a time. Right now, I'm doing something that I don't recommend that you do, which is just clicking through next without actually reading through. you know, it takes time for me to put material here, and it's all put there so that you can read it, you can have the information available. Doing what I'm doing right now won't quite help you. Let me come back to this page later to address the question that's come up. Doing what I'm doing right now won't help you kind of follow the course material in the way it's intended. So it's a matter of how much trouble I am willing to go through to make sure that you are reading the pages. And a lot of the information on the page, I feel like after having made the information available and having set module requirements so that it's not so easy for you to skip around, I feel like I've done everything that I should do to make sure that you are aware of the information on those pages. Now, every now and then, particular page will be important enough that I really need to stop you and make sure that you actually do something there. And that's what you see here. On the honor code pledge page, I simply clicked next through. Can't do that. I actually have to do something there. So let me take the honor code pledge correctly, and then I'll go back to the page I skipped and then explain some of the grading approach for this class. So let me do this honor code pledge. Now, actually doing this pledge is the main reason I do this virtual class session, online orientation session. Every semester, 1 or 2 students do this wrong, and at some point, it's easiest for me to point to the video and say, you see me doing it correctly as the student, do it the exact same way. First, let me just highlight some of the mistakes people make. One mistake that someone makes might be you don't read the instructions and you think all I asked you to do is type in your name. I mean, you will be typing your name as part of it, but it's not just your name that I'm asking for. I'm asking for this entire block of text, and I explain why above, because I want to make sure that you have read the important portion of the honor code, and I think the only way I can make sure that you do that is by making you type it. Now, the reason for this honor code and some of the anti-cheating measures you will see employed throughout the class is some of you, definitely at least one person out of the 40 or so people, and maybe even some of you who are here in real time, I don't know who, but some of you, will not be planning on doing honest work in this class. So there are some people who will take any shortcut that you feel like you can take. So you might think, how is Andrew, my instructor, going to know if I, ignored all these warnings and simply copied and pasted? After all, I'm asking you to, type the entire block of text as it appears. What's the difference? What I will tell you is that there is a difference, and as part of the in-person lab session, I will show you what that difference is. And so far, I've graded about 5-6 of these so far, and no one's done it incorrectly yet. So unless you're that one submission that just came in, I haven't graded it, so I don't know that yet. But the 5 or so people who did that before, you did it correctly. Good job. It's fine. But if I'm a betting man, I would bet at least one person out of 40 or so students who will do this wrong, and I want to send this video to them. So the correct way to do it is the way I'm going to do it now. I'm going to simply type it. Oh, by the way, you can also use voice typing. In fact, should I do it that way? No, let me not do voice typing. But if you use voice typing, I will accept that, because in order for voice typing to work, you might have said this out loud, and I think that fulfills the purpose enough. I'm just going to type it the regular way. I, test student, will make submissions that represent, now, if there are typos, it's fine. You see me correcting typos, solutions, but that's more of my OCD than anything else, except where explicitly allowed. And everything is graded manually, so if there are typos, like 100% agreement with the text is not plagiarism is not required. If there are no typos, then then I would assume that you corrected the typos the way I'm correcting my typos. As long as you are typing it, I don't judge whether someone copied and pasted or typed based on agreement between text. Not engage in any other activities that dishonestly improve my results or dishonestly damage or now some of you are super fast typists. I think some of you who have done this, I see this on my I see you've taken like a minute and a half to do this whole thing, so you must be able to type at something like 100 words per minute. If I'm not talking and being distracted, I can do this in like about a minute and a half. I can type at about 100 words per minute. Now one last piece of the demo is that you saw me multitask as I was typing this. I was saying one thing while I'm typing another set of words. Not everyone will be as good a typist as I am and be able to do that, but because that level of multitasking is something that I can do, I assume some of you who are as good a typist as I am can do as well. Ultimately, it's a matter of how much trouble am I willing to go through to make sure you paid attention, read this. If you are multitasking as you're typing, it's fine. I think trying to rule that out is going to be more trouble than it's worth. So all I'm looking for is that you've typed this, and I do grade all the Honor Code Pledge quiz manually for that purpose. And at the lab session on Thursday, I will demonstrate how I know when someone's copying and pasting. And I don't look at the time information. Sometimes, I'll see this. They will copy and paste and then wait like 3-4 minutes to make it look like they typed it. I don't look at that. There are 100% 100% reliable indicators that I use that I will show you at the Thursday's lab session. So all right, that's done. So this second question gave me 2 points automatically. That gives me enough to move on to the next item. Let me introduce myself, and then I'll go back and talk about the grading structure for this class. So this is my actual intro. Let me do this as me, Andrew Park, not test student. Do I need to zoom out? I think this is enough. Okay. So, hi, my name is Andrew Park. Whenever you see test student in these questions, I think it might be only this one. It's me, your instructor, clearing the module requirement for the test student. Name is Andrew Park, and I prefer to go by Andrew. If you aren't comfortable calling me Andrew, some of you are like in high school, and I am much older than you are. then you can call me Mr. Park. I don't know if I ever liked a professor, and if you call me Dr. Park, I will just know that you don't pay attention. I don't have a doctorate. I never finished my PhD program at UC Berkeley. I did do enough work to get master's. That's what qualifies me to teach at community college, but I don't have a PhD. So if you are calling me Dr. Park, that's a mistake. Mr. Park is fine. Goodbye, Andrew. Why you are so I need to change some of the questions so that it fits me. I am teaching this class as part of my full-time teaching load at COA, and this is the first semester when we actually have 2 of these classes. So yours is the regular session class, and in about 3 weeks we will be starting a second Physics 4A session that has a 50% in-person lecture. Some of the session some of you might want to make use of. I don't know, it's first time we are doing it, so I have lots of ideas, but nothing that's that I can point to past results and say this is how it worked. Full-time teaching load at COA, and I really love teaching this class because this is the one class whose main focus is on physics problem solving. You will hear me talk about standard strategy in a few weeks and all that. Um, and that's the second question. Choose one or more of the following questions to answer. Yeah, all of these. I guess I can answer them all. I was physics and pure mathematics. One of the kind of not so good decisions in my college years. Pure mathematics, double major. I really should have done applied math because then they would have let me count some of the upper division physics classes as part of my math major. But pure math didn't let me do that. Physics and pure mathematics double major in college, and I was in an AMO, that is atomic, molecular, and optical physics research in my graduate student days at UC Berkeley. So that's my major, or my actual major, not intended major. Um, I briefly considered doing a simultaneous degree in nuclear engineering, but never did it. I am the sole full-time physics instructor here at College of Alameda. Last semester I taught one class at Laney, but not doing that this semester. At College of Alameda, and you will see me at Science Annex most weekday evenings. The last question, I learn best by reading. I was never a good student in lectures. I'd often doze off or get distracted. I really absorb information best through reading the textbook, which is a little bit ironic because a lot of the materials in the class, the ones that I spent a lot of time building up, they are all not reading materials, they are video materials. But I think if you are like me, every instructor structures their class so that students who are like them can do fine. If you're like me, read a textbook. There's nothing that's not in the textbook that I require you to know. So if you are able to learn from our textbooks, that's fine. You don't have to be stressed out about if you are missing some information from lectures. I do want you to watch the lectures. There are certain ways of presenting things that you will see it in lecture and not in other places. But if somehow you get bored watching videos, you just want to learn from textbook, that's fine. As long as you learn how to solve physics problems, I'll be able to see what you have learned in our required one-on-one meeting and do that. So let me post this. I'm gonna try to make sure it doesn't scroll down, because if it does, then I have to go back and check. Was that my own thing? Or yeah, okay, good. If I scroll down too far, then I have to blur out your names for the YouTube version of the video. So let me not scroll down any further, and instead I will go to the home page, and then so the way I got to that point, starting with the start here, it works the first time you do it, but every time after that it gets annoying because you don't want to keep clicking next several dozens of times to get to the page that you're actually looking for. Really, what I recommend, the way you should access the course material, is through the modules view. So through the modules view, you can see the entire course laid out. Even though you have to work through the modules in order, there is some loosening of requirements around the week 3, so it won't be forever where you can't access these later. Work through the first 2 weeks, and then in week 3 you'll gain lots more freedom to jump around. But in the modules view, you can see everything. You can see in week 1 everything that's coming up, even the ones that you don't have access to right now. So the modules view is how I recommend that you access the course material. I finished the Getting Started module that actually unlocked the 2 modules, both the lecture module and the lab module. If you want, you can take a look at this, see what we are doing on Thursday. The intro to physics lab will be doing that in week 2, not this week. And I guess this is the first semester when we will have a pre-lab. I made some changes to the lab 1, kind of reflecting on what's gone well, what hasn't gone well. So for week 1, just show up. There'll be some survey for you to do. I have some presentation that I want to do that's that's based on some of the grading data from past a few semesters. So let me just talk a little bit about grading approach for this class, and then I think we'll wrap up the session here. So now the material you can access right now is this Physics 4A grading standards page, and you do want to kind of look at it. It's not the syllabus, but this has lots of important information. The main thing I will say is that I really do hate grading. If I didn't have to assign letter grades, I would just not assign letter grades. If I could just, I do love evaluating your work. I do love seeing when people understand physics problem solving. Like that, I love. What I hate is that when I look at written work, it's not always the case. Maybe not even half the times it's not the case that I'm looking at honest representation of your own work, your own understanding of physics. And I think a lot of that is driven by competitiveness of the STEM track and all of that. I hate it. At some point, if people let me just grade pass no pass, and if they want to know how much physics then they should just ask you. Like if the first semester when someone lets me do that, I will do that. But since they're not letting me do that anymore, I do have to figure out a way to assign a letter grade for you. So that's what this page is describing. And really all I am looking to do is, do you have excellent understanding of what we cover in Physics 4A? And you saw the extended description of this in syllabus. Do you have good understanding? Do you have basically or fair to poor understanding, but you did enough work, you didn't let me drop you, or have you not done enough work that you shouldn't pass? And so I'm leaning rather heavily on the fact that we have a pretty simple grading system. We don't have pluses and minuses. We really have to only make the decision. Does this student deserve an A, B, or C, or is this someone that I should have dropped? So I do want you to work through all the written work as honestly as you can, and the one item that I will be grading fairly regularly, and as long as you are completing it honestly, I can get a good sense of where you are at, is the problem set assessment. I grade this on a weekly basis, and as long as you are completing it honestly, you will get a decent feedback on if you are on the right track or not. Now, if you're not completing it honestly, then okay, you're just hurting yourself. And so you should do all the written work. And ultimately, the points you get in the written work, they won't determine your letter grade. So when you look at the grade book, the summary of the grade book will just say greater than 90% completion, 70% completion, less than, I forget what percentage I said it at, 50% completion. Those don't mean A's and B's and C's. I've had a student who got 95% completion, they got a C because of reasons they know. And I've had the people who only got 70% completion, they still got an A because through the series of required one-on-one meetings, they could demonstrate that they know how to solve physics problems. So as a part of the grade determination process, there's one item that's still kind of written. There's a self-assessment, self-evaluation. It does serve a purpose, do it please. And how people complete it does give me some idea of if there's someone that I need to pay extra attention to reach out to make sure that we do the required one-on-one meeting. At this early point in the semester, this is the 2-sentence summary advice I can give to everyone that I hope will help everyone. This is my parting reminder summary. Do all the written work as a practice for the required one-on-one meeting that will be taking place later, that we'll hold later. focusing on what you understood and learned. And hold the required one-on-one meeting as soon as possible so that you can receive the initial feedback as early as possible. And if you need to do anything differently, you have more of the semester to do that. If anyone here, either in real time or watching the recording, are thinking there are these things that's frankly academic dishonesty that you are doing for other online classes, you are thinking that might work for this class, you can pass. But you won't get a B or an A without demonstrating that you know how to solve physics problems. So actually, I did make one change this semester that's sort of helping you to schedule the required one-on-one meeting as soon as possible. So let me actually leave the student view and go to this page that's going to be in the week 3, 4. I think week 4. That's where I put it now. It used to be in the same module as the the timed assessment, which is kind of midterm exam replacement. But I think that kind of led to unnecessary delays. So where this page of reminder and fuller description of the whole process it's on week 4. And frankly, all you need to do is complete through week 2 of materials. Then the rest of the module requirements are marked as done. You can kind of mark things as done and come to this page to read it slowly on your own if you want. So this page will describe in more detail what it is that you need to do. And again, I make no secret of the fact that I hate grading, mainly because it's so difficult to separate goat from the sheep, separate the chaff from the grains based on your written work, especially with the AI. Frankly, there's no way to tell based on your written work if it's honestly completed or not. And even the people who might have studied this class thinking that you're going to use ChatGPT or whatever form of AI, even for those people, I do want you to have the opportunity to improve and actually learn the subject and earn the grade if you are willing to put in the effort to actually learn the material. So let me slowly scroll through so that people can, through the magic of recording, read this page today if you want to. And I'll just highlight 2 different tracks in which the meeting takes place. And that's the place where I made some change this semester, because I saw that for certain categories of people that one of the tracks was acting as a kind of a trap. That wasn't intended as a trap in the rule patches. It only affects people who are trying to, min-max the system. It's like if you're not trying to game the system, that there's nothing there you need to worry about. Although you're welcome to read it. So really the main portion of this page that has the information that some of you might be asking is, okay, what do I need to do so that I can get a minimum of B or the A that you are hoping for? Well, you should prepare for the meeting. And the question, what will we cover in the meeting? For vast majority of you, you will be going through what I'm going to call the standard track now. And in the standard track, all you are going to do is solve some of the homework questions. These are questions you have seen. You had an ample opportunity to think about, learn how to solve it, learn how to do that, and do that at the one-on-one in-person meeting. Great. That so the first successful meeting will ensure that guarantee you a minimum grade of a B, and you can do additional meetings to meet the standard for an A. So this standard track is what I recommend for everyone. And I will be honest and say that this is not the track that I envisioned these meetings going. I actually thought what I'm describing now as accelerated track as the kind of typical way this meeting would go. But what I realize now, having done these meetings for 2.5 years, is that it's only handful of students. In this class of 40, it's probably 5 people or fewer who are able to do accelerated track successfully. And for some of the people who are intending to cheat their way through this class, what I was describing as the first track before kind of worked like a trap. Like they would try to trick me in that one meeting and then try to cost it doesn't really work that way. So I'm recasting that track as accelerated track. Now, for those of you who are super confident in physics problem solving, I can tell that usually in like 5 to 10 minutes of conversation about physics. So for people who feel that way, great, do the accelerated track. We can minimize the busy work on both of our parts that way. And this is still available, but I will tell you that the standards for the accelerated track is higher. So anyone who's, using ChatGPT to work through problem sets without understanding how to do them yourself. I mean, you can attempt the accelerated track, but within like first 2-3 minutes, I'll see that, oh, yeah, this track is not for you. But for people who, who have test anxiety, people who are worried about these things, all I would say is that, prepare based on the homework questions. Work on homework questions the way you are supposed to, and that'll naturally prepare you for this meeting. So I think that's probably all the hour we have. I didn't quite demonstrate enough of the class, but I think it'll be fine. I think after you get through the getting started module, then starting with the lecture module, it's sort of kind of self-explanatory. So I think it'll be fine. So the next module item, this is your first MyOpenMath assignment. This is really the only set of assignments where due dates actually matter. If you try to access this past the Friday midnight, you'll have to use late passes and all that. So do this early. As you work through this, you will be able to see the lecture videos. This is the sort of the main lecture material. And as I was saying, I do wish people will watch it. And if you need to watch it at double the speed, that's fine. Do that. I guess watching the video isn't technically required to skip to the questions and answer it. Like nothing in the system prevents you from answering the questions without watching the videos, but do what helps you understand physics problem solving, because that's the main thing that will come out at the required one-on-one meeting. And the better you are prepared to solve physics problems, the easier the meetings will go, the more likely it'll be that you can earn the grade that you are hoping to earn. So, okay, so I think that's everything. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see in the agenda. I think this time I put this item as the last thing on the agenda so that I won't forget anything. I hope I answered the grading question. If there are any other questions people have that you want to ask on recording, I'm happy to answer. If there aren't any questions people want to ask on recording, I'm going to stop the recording and stay online briefly in case there are other questions that people want you to ask but just not on recording. And then I'll finally say goodbye. So going once, twice, let me stop the recording, saying goodbye to people joining by recorded the video. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the Thursday's in-person lab session. Bye to people joining by recorded the video.
Recording stopped.
And let me stop the backup recording.